The main one is Atlas Hoofed It, right up the road here, and of course we buy their pork, and that's what's in our quesadillas and stuff like that. So it's the Circle of Life. They're great, and just a hint as to how small the area is up here and how local and tight the community is. She was also the nurse that brought our child into the world. So you just gotta love stories like that, right? Like I consider her a friend for life now. There's no other way to go about it.
Yeah, you're unintentionally married from now on. So. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. I'm your not so humble host, Carp, and today we are in Bloomingdale, New York, and joining me is Ethan of Hex and Hop's Brewing.
Hey.
Brewery and meadery.
Yes, brewery and meadery now.
Awesome. Love hearing that. Thank you very much for taking time out of your clearly busy schedule to speak with us about your brewery, meadery, the town of Bloomingdale, and everything surrounding, and some delicious looking beers here. What am I going to be starting with today?
So we got you started on the meads because they're lighter.
Okay.
Our meads this summer are dry. They're not big, heavy meads. They're something refreshing that you can have out on a boat in the sun. So the cherry is 100% New York honey, New York cherry. All of our honey comes from Malone, Adirondack honey. So it's all local, raw wildflower. So the first one's cherry and honey, and the second one will be apple and honey and New York ingredients.
Love that nose. All right, well, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that is light and refreshing.
Yes. In a realm that's getting crowded with seltzer, it's just made with sugar.
Yeah.
Using some natural ingredients and more of a wine yeast. So you get more of a wine finish than you do like a seltzer finish.
Yeah.
And I think that balances them out pretty well.
That's super tasty. Like you said, I can see myself on a boat or on a beach, and you guys do cans, which is super convenient too. It's the world of, to me, it's the world of cans now. You don't have to worry about rolling your foot on a can on the beach and shattering a bottle. So.
And it crushes. You can pack it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Aluminum's one of the most recycled things on the planet, so
yeah, I love them more than glass because they're 99% in, 99% out. You know, and these are also low alcohol for out on the boat. Both of these are below 5%, so a little bit more sessionable. I don't know if I like that word, but yeah.
Yeah, I use crushable a lot.
There you go.
It's it seems to be the word, the buzzword that a lot of people use right now.
Yeah.
So what's your beer story? What led to the creation of Hex and Hops and your entire getting into brewing?
I mean, that's the classic home brewer story for 10 years, but engineering background, so I got a little squirrely with it. Like I can turn on all my tanks with my phone, and then that's Raspberry Pi stuff,
Love that.
But yeah, my wife and I wanted to start a family. We were living in a big city, and housing and everything just didn't look right, so wanted to do something rural. And I figured if I was going to take a risk on a business, I had to do it before the little one showed up, and that was kind of our agreement. So we moved out to the middle of the mountains and opened up a brewery. But definitely big into that agricultural slant, so we decided to kind of combine beer and honey, do the brewery and meadery, and eventually the B side of everything, we just had to partner with a very large producer, because I get that in the 55-gallon drum now.
Yeah.
Yep. So now we push heavy on the meads and honey in beer and honey in some of the kitchen items as well.
Yeah. There's not a lot of hybrid like brewery, meadery, brewery, cidery. It's kind of just like either a brewery or a cidery or a vineyard, and it's very, I know especially in Quebec where we live, it's super rare to have kind of the combination.
Yeah.
I know we're starting to get distilleries in breweries, but not very often that you have both. So.
And the laws have changed to allow that to happen. That's part of the big reason, the federal laws and the state laws, because this is technically a brewery and a winery at the federal level, and it's a farm brewery, microbrewery, farm meadery at the state level. And just being able to do that legally has changed in the last couple of years.
I mean, kind of along that line, was the town of Bloomingdale very welcoming of having a tap room in a brewery where they this is something we need, we want to bring in some business, and this will help to somebody who's just after doing some mountain stuff or bike riding. I mean, you got the 3 right there, just come down and chill out and have a beer. Was the city it's like, this is income, please come.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, is because of the price of the property and the welcomeness of the town.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot in Bloomingdale, so they were super eager to bring another business, and we continue to be a year-round business. We don't shut down in the winter, so that's very helpful for employees, income, and just being able to get a bite to eat in Bloomingdale on a weekday or a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you're only closed like Mondays and Tuesdays, which is typical of most breweries. So unless you're, you've been around like 20 years or something, and there's the demand for it. But Mondays and Tuesdays, most people are either working or just not drinking. So
sure. Yeah. And it's also so we can use this system here.
Yeah.
It gets way too hot in here to have the tap room open on a day that a batch is going through.
Yeah, for sure. Outside of clearly the pandemic, any other kind of roadblocks or difficulties you had creating, from location to one city councilor is like, oh no, it'll look bad, there'll be alcoholics in town and stuff like that? Or
we're just dealing with the standard stuff, opening close to a pandemic, and now we're dealing with, employment's difficult because, we've got like 11 people on payroll, but people have lives and they got to go live, and I'm very flexible on that, but it does create challenges. It creates days I'm in the kitchen, Yeah. And then other than that is growing pains. We put in our 10-barrel system down the road, We were up and running in production, a year or two. So there's growing pains and increasing size there and that sort of stuff. But, for the most part, the town people, especially the local municipalities and the people that supported us through the pandemic has just been amazing.
That's awesome. Love hearing that. Yeah, it's always good when the town's very like, yes, this will bring in, most people realize it's going to bring in business. It's supporting a local company or supporting a local maker of product, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And like for festivals, I get to go to the fire department and just fill up ice. I don't have to. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Hex and Hop is a pretty unique name. I thought it was because witch's hex, but it looks like it's actually the hex of kind of a honeycomb.
Yeah. Bees in beer, now meads in beer, brewery, meadery. So we kind of evolved it a little bit, but trying to incorporate in honey in as much things as possible, including the beers, and the meads, of course, are primarily honey. And just it brings a little bit more of that agricultural connection and feel to the brand.
Yeah. And that was always the name, or was it like, oh, we're moving to Bloomingdale Brewing, or was there like a bunch of stuff thrown at a wall and you're like, no, that's the one?
No, we started with Hex and Hop before we had a location.
Okay.
There was a bunch of fun names that were thrown out there, but they didn't fit the feel of what we were going for. So it ended up being, the building is owned by a company called Buy Local, and we were joking around about making that something a little bit more aggressive and decided it was a bad idea.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, I know like in the brewing industry, it's like, no, we're on, it's like back home, it's on St. Ambroise Street, and that's why it's called St. Ambroise, and it's just New England, blonde, what, but the brewing industry, and then it's like super punny names, and then super weird, and then just the gamut of what you could do in the brewing industry to me is amazing. You don't see that in wine. It's just like, oh, here's our Shiraz, here's this, here's that.
Yep.
So
yeah. And the flexibility of the craft. Winemakers do a batch a year, and they got to hit big things. Where, the one advantage we do we do have increased prices because we're small because of cost. But I can take risks. Yeah. I can take big risks on something new, and hopefully that's what attracts people with small guys like us. We got one going right now called the Whole Hive.
Okay.
So I put 100 pounds of honey in 100 gallons. It's not economically feasible, but it's our anniversary beer, so we do it for fun, right?
Awesome.
And you won't find that anywhere. No one's going to do that for any reason other than the reason we do it. You know?
For sure. Let's get on this next mead that you brought me here. So you said it's an apple?
So it's half apple juice, half honey.
Okay.
Still technically a mead, but the style's called a Cyser. It's dry. And the apples for this batch came out of Shazy Orchards up there. Yeah, and this one you get apple on the nose and you get apple in the middle. And this one's really in the last month kind of come into its own after sitting for the extra 30 days. It really developed into something that I think is,
Yeah, it smells like apple juice.
Yeah, but it's dry. It's not sweet.
Toast.
Cheers.
Yeah, this is another dangerous one. I'm more impartial to the cherry, but I've always loved cherry. But both of these, like I said, just take that bike ride, enjoy one of these, and then bike back to wherever you were. Or
you're safe with a couple of these and being on a bike. You're not going to get over that limit.
Yeah. And we always say just drink responsibly, never drink and drive. Clearly, the location it's pretty interesting where you picked. Was there a lot of? Did you have to dig the trenches for the drainage? How many? Did you have to do a lot to this room to make it like your vision of a tap room?
I think we got a solid 6 to 9 months in renovations.
Wow.
It was a convenience store, so you got to the walls were bright green and everything else was purple, including the fan blades. So the tile had to come up. Obviously doing the drains, adding a bathroom, the kitchen. I built the bar too, so this is all concrete and on a welded steel frame. Yeah, everything in here, with the exception of a few larger electrical projects and the larger plumbing projects, was done by hand.
But then, you just hire a local guy to do it, right?
I did it all.
But like, no, you said the major electrical stuff. You just get a local,
a
local business to do it. Clearly,
and we had friends that would show up for work nights and things like that to help out and paint the kitchen tonight. And thanks, I didn't have to do that. So, but yeah, it was a passion project, and it took a while to settle in too. All the bookshelves and things didn't come along until later, but they kind of tie it all together. Or the artwork, that's donated by Matt. That's great.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing. I'm sure. I mean, your walls are already pretty packed, but if you had more room, you would probably put up local artwork to sell and stuff like that. You know, always supporting that local place. That's your big thing. Supporting local artists, supporting local this, supporting local. That's what you think. You mentioned apples from Champlain Valley. That's the most important part of a guy like yourself is you're trying to keep your business as local as possible. But then there's guys like us coming from Montreal who are like, no, we got to get your name out there because we want people to come here because mead and beer is delicious.
For me, Plattsburgh's hyper local. I know it's an hour away, but it's a part of the community. You know. And
being based in Montreal, it's like we're an hour away from Plattsburgh. We're 2 hours away from Lake Placid. Lake George is about the same, 2 hours. It's just come on down. It's not that hard, and the borders reopen. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt going back with that app that's there, but just come support a local company. Because I'm sure when the chance of you guys coming back up there, you're going to be drinking our local beer too. So.
Oh, my wife has already planned our trip to Montreal. I just got to find time off.
I mean, well, it's usually later on, but let's speak of that. So when there is time off, what's a beercation you've never taken that you'd love to?
A beercation that I've never taken.
So,
well, we just did one last year where we finally got over to Maine.
Okay.
Maine Brewing Company, Mass Landing, a few of them over there. We'd started to see their stuff, and Maine doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Was I think the first big take the beer industry by storm since it took a while for another brewery to really pop on the internet national international radar. So I got to go see them, and my wife's family's in Connecticut, so we've done the treehouse thing. Like I said, I did the beer festival for 10 years before I opened a business. I just love it out there. So if I were to do one, it'd be based off of that experience. I'd actually want to get to Wisconsin.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there's New Glarus. If you ever have a sip of a beer and it was 5 years ago and you can still remember it.
Okay.
They had a beer called Serendipity that I tried, and it stuck with me, and it was the building block for our sour recipe, obviously using different ingredients and stuff like that. But there's some interesting ones like that. I'd like to say I'd get back to Colorado one of these days, but there's a lot out there to try.
I mean, even in the U.S. alone, I think there's something like 7,000 breweries now. Yeah. So you could just do the US
finally
alone,
plateaued.
So.
Finally it's plateaued, and I think the pandemic actually put the top on the curve rather than it still continuing to go up for a couple of years.
In Quebec and Ontario, our two provinces next to each other, there's more breweries opening than closing during the pandemic, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
It's, alcohol is an essential service. You can't cut off alcohol from people. You're going to kill them. So, and it's you're going to be stuck at home. Okay, well, so go buy some beers and just chill out. And the pandemic has sucked for everybody on all levels.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be able to work from home, but yourself, you couldn't do that. You had to shut down your tap room. You had to lose income coming in the tap room that was more than necessary being a very young brewery.
Yeah.
Was there big support locally when it's well, crap, we have to close the room, but we got cans?
Yep. Yeah, we started the Crowler machine back then. So that's the 32-ounce can to go.
Yeah.
And we did that in August before the pandemic. And if we had not gotten that machine, we would have been dead in the water. Yeah. It was just me and one other person that she was one of our original hires. She still does our flowers. Krista's amazing. We just made cans and people drove up and bought them. And that support really blew my mind.
Yeah.
There were people driving 45 minutes out of their way to make sure they'd stop here and purchase, and they're like, I can only come back once a week, so I'm going to buy a lot. That support was really amazing. Yeah. I could not have planned or predicted for it, and it was great.
I'm sure some people in the area are like, whoa, what's this craft beer stuff? What's that beer you get to convert them on?
Well, you should try the New England next.
That's this.
That's the no boil hops.
Yep.
That's our number one seller, hands down. That's what I drink on a night off for sure. And after making that more than any other beer for 3 years straight, and it's a pain. There's so much hops. It's just a pain to clean. I still enjoy it, so that says something. So it's really weird. I do a lager in the winters for the locals, and we do a pale ale that I'm currently out of, but I'll have back in about a week. I find that just not telling people it's an IPA
Yeah.
and just letting them take a sip, because the bitterness is so far down and the hop flavor is ramped up that, just getting people to put something in front of them. Our plum sour, which I usually make once a year, which is really light on the sour, like just barely tart.
Yeah.
Blue light drinkers love that. And I have no idea why, but I have people that only drink, light beer, and they'll come in. If we have that sour on, they'll come in. You just never know what's going to convert them, and that's the great thing about a brewery, is just getting something in front of them and letting them make their own judgment. The secret is not to tell them what it is.
Oh. Yeah, no, I just took a sip, and I'm like, there's barely any bitterness to it. It's wild. And that, like, you call this New England, it doesn't taste like one.
Oh, yeah?
Because I guess I'm so used to, like, the bigger, bolder, crazier New Englands that the occasional well-balanced New England, I'm like, whoa, like, I forgot this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, people putting fruit in their New Englands and stuff like that to get cantaloupe notes and chase. I am doing experiments too. I've got I got a heavily mash hopped beer on there, chasing thiol and some of the newer yeast strains and things like that. I'm always experimenting, but that one is it's never going away.
You also do food local. Do you have a food and beer pairing that you kind of do, or do you just kind of make suggestions with what people order?
Well, it depends. If people are going for dessert, I push them towards our Mocha Stout, which you've got towards the end there. The lighter meads are just great in general for just about anything, because some of the things with more spice or things with a little bit more flavor, the beer can overlap too much with them, like a big IPA, right? Like, are you eating or are you drinking?
Yeah.
When you're in that kind of flavor, it's almost kind of like, am I eating or am I drinking today? Are we going to do one before the other? We've done a number of pairing dinners also, though, externally with, Hotel Saranac or up in Malone at Donovan's. And I love working with chefs that have real robust kitchens. We like to keep our kitchen simple. It's small. We want to make sure that people can get a full meal, a 16-inch pizza, but it's definitely not our focal point.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a part of the original business model, but people love food with beer, and the town really wanted something to eat, so we've done as much as we can with the small space.
Amazing. What's the first beer you ever remember? Like, good, bad? Oh God, this tastes like rubbing alcohol. What was that first beer you ever brewed? Do you remember that?
Oh, you mean the homebrew days?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first one was bad because I didn't even have. I figured that chlorine was a sanitizer, and oh my God, it tasted like a Band-Aid. But hey, that was the first bucket I'd ever cleaned, right?
Yeah.
Things have changed since then. Actually, our pale ale, because I make a pale ale that I made a lot on the homebrewing system because it's easy to identify off flavors and trying to dial the system in. And so that was the first beer I made here as well. And of course, my first time using this heat exchanger, I gummed up the heat exchanger, and it sat warm a little longer than it should have on the boil side. So it got a hint more bitterness. So that was the first beer ever made here, and I called it the Bob Ross.
Okay.
Because I put it side by side with the recipe made right after that, within a couple days, 2 spec, and had people taste them side by side. And people just liked the name Bob Ross and the story behind it more than anything. The difference in it was very subtle. But since then, we've changed it to the Happy Little Pale Ale because Bob Ross Inc. is not the nicest company to talk to.
No, well, that's there's somebody back home in Quebec. They made a Fruit Loops beer and they put Toucan Sam on it, and they're like, "What do you think you're doing?" I can't remember who we were talking to. And they're like, "No, we had tried to have like Disney properties, and the last thing you need is Disney coming after you."
Bob Ross Inc. is interesting, but so now it's the Happy Little Pale Ale. There's someone painting Baker Mountain and Hotel Saranac Lake on the front.
That's awesome.
That's coming back out in cans here in a month.
I mean, again, your names are kind of all over the place. It's like, we have the Honey Double IPA, but also we have the Moose Jam. Like, you have a good dichotomy of kind of both versions of naming. What made you guys decide as a team, yourself, and I'm assuming your wife, who's your business partner at the same time?
Nope. I keep her as far away from the business as possible. Okay. That's sanity. The days she has to work the tap room are emergency, like ripcord only. Because I think I think she needs a healthy balance because she keeps us in health insurance.
Yeah.
She does the hard work.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
But the naming and stuff is actually it's my favorite part. A new recipe development and the name that goes with it, because my head's just rattling puns around all the time, or just what sticks, what feels. So each one's new, each one's different. Sometimes they start with a name and end up with a beer. Sometimes they start with a beer and end up with a name. We just ran out of our Spruce Tip IPA. which was big spruce this year, and I named it Tree Beard.
Yeah.
And so if you're a Lord of the Rings guy, there's like a big ent on the front, you know, and it's like drinking, you know, the forest.
That's awesome.
Some of them are puns, some of them are stories, some of them are just very cherry. You know, it's something that'll kind of stick with you if it's a new product that you're not quite sure what to expect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who does your can art?
I work closely. Our printer is in Burlington, and you know, he was walking in my door selling the coasters to us, you know, before we even had a dream in our eye for art. And the artist sits on site, and they're just phenomenal with the back and forth. The Moose Jam, the Pale Ale, and the No BH, it was all custom artwork that she drew for us. Things like the Tree Beard is. I said, look, I want an ent on there. It's Ent Elixir, and here's a Google image search of ents, and she came back with just something that knocked it out of the park with just that little bit of direction, you know. So they're great. They're just over in Burlington, and it's good. I got another one coming up here we're working on right now.
Yeah. What's this next beer?
So you're going to the sour, the Moose Jam on Route 3. That's a fun name as well. And so this is raspberry black currant. Like I said, the inspiration was from that one beer I tried called Serendipity, and I was just like, so that's why it starts with a brown ale.
Okay.
So you do get a little bit more maltiness. It's on the tartar end of the spectrum, with that black currant kind of kicking in like the very back. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Toast. Black currant.
Raspberry and black currant.
Yeah.
I'm
personally getting more raspberry, but my palate's very common, so.
It's 3-1 on raspberry to black currant, because black currant is quite potent.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get the sour notes from the sour.
Are all your flights like this, or is this?
Yeah, no, that's what we do.
Okay.
And there's normally a little ticket on the front that has a printout of, you know, what you ordered, so you can track it along as you go. But today you've got the verbal version.
Yeah. What made you decide to go with these more metallic ones and not the classic, you know, just the wood panel?
Well, we had those when we first started, but they're really hard to clean.
Okay.
And I like the presentation, and as far as cleaning up tables and stuff, I can grab like 3 or 4 of these and keep moving. Yeah. And plus, there was a brewery I visited out in New Hampshire, right as we were putting the business together, and they had these, and I always liked the feel and the aesthetic. Yeah.
The creativity of the flights alone to the creativity of what's coming out of here it just blows my mind every time.
Yeah, we get to take some risks, and you know, creativity. Like, I don't have them right now because I just went up north for some maintenance. But we normally have a live observation hive right over there on the wall. Okay. And people can come in and looking at bees and drinking beer. That's like nature's TV, you know.
Yeah, and you know, bees are producing the honey for your meads.
Yeah.
So it's that big circle. I mean, speaking of that's another thing. Does the local farmer come and grab your spent grain and feed the local animals?
Oh, no. So the main one is Atlas Hoofed It right up the road here, and of course we buy their pork, and that's what's in our quesadillas and stuff like that. So it's the circle of life. They're great, and just a hint as to how small the area is up here and how local and tight the community is. She was also the nurse that, you know, brought our child into the world. So you just gotta love stories like that, right? Like I consider her a friend for life now. You know, there's no other way to go about it.
Yeah, you're unintentionally married from now on. So amazing. I like to ask now. You mentioned a lot of other breweries, but are there? And you have that honey company that you deal with. But what are some collabs that you've done? Like, you're still a very baby brewery when you think about it.
3 years.
You're a toddler of a brewery when you think about it. But you've done some local collabs. Anybody you'd love to shout out who's like, go check out these businesses?
Well, yeah, I always just love the creativity on Route 3 from Racket River and Tupper up to, you know, the Ausable brothers up there. The Badger brothers at Ausable Brewing. So I always promote that craft. I think that's like a craft on Route 3 kind of thing. We do things differently. They don't do kettle sours at Ausable. I do kettle sours here. Racket does lighter fare, but as business people and as community, you know, supporters, I have to point to those two businesses immediately. Collaboration-wise, I'm starting to do some more talks with In-Law up in the Messina area. Those guys are really cool. Like, right when we opened, they were driving through and they're like, "That's a hop on that sign, isn't it?" And they did like a 180 and pulled in and handed us a growler and took some beers, you know. And then we kind of dropped touch. We dropped conversation during the pandemic, and now we're seeing each other at festivals again. So I hope this winter we actually might even do like a full-blown collaboration with the can art and everything. I also like to do a lot of community support things, you know, like our Ukraine beer, but we've got one that we're putting out now. There's a local company that does sustainable power. They found a way that you know, the local dam, the local hydro, solar, wind can actually get direct income from customers, so they don't get the pennies on the dollar to the grid. They get the full amount. So anybody who signs up with them, it doesn't cost you anything extra. But then now you're guaranteeing your money goes to a local sustainable source. So Northern Power and Light, I'm going to be doing a can to put their name all the way out there, because the more accounts they get, the more sustainable energy they can build in their infrastructure and put new plants in.
So that's what's nice about where we are in Quebec, because we have like Quebec and Ontario are hydropower pretty much. So, and that's, you know, we've been using sustainable power for like 100 years. You know, minus when we had our ice storm back in the 90s, so that was about it. But and there's a few breweries I know in Ontario now that are 100% carbon neutral.
So I've heard about the carbon neutral brewery, and I know that there was one that was proposed to be open in Canada. I'd love to see the numbers on it. There was another brewery that claimed it, but I don't trust those guys.
There's one called Carbon.
And
I can't remember what the other one is called, but we recently just read an article, and it's like 3.5 hours from where we live in Montreal. So I'm like, maybe we'll make that a weekend.
I love the concept. It's a very energy intensive process. So but the more we can convert, the better. I
do find like local alcohol producers are trying to stay ahead of the curve of like being sustainable energy. So that's huge in my opinion. And you know, it's not our generation that messed up this planet. It's like 5 generations ago that messed up this planet. So let's try and fix it now for the next 5
Before
generations.
Before it's my daughters,
so,
right?
You know, I've told my nephew, he bought a big like Ford F-150. I'm like, dude, you don't need that. You literally drive like 3 kilometers or 2 miles for work. He should have just gotten electric. Although buying cars right now is, I don't know if it's a biggest disaster in the U.S. that it was in Canada, but
terrible.
At one point, it was like almost a year I would have had signed for a car. I'm like, no, I need a car now. I needed to change vehicles, and there weren't the one that I wanted. I couldn't even test drive. I had to wait like 2 months for it to show up to even test drive it. So mine was, do you want the white or the blue? I want the blue. No, you want the white because you could give it to you in 3 weeks. Yes, now we could put paper.
That's why mine's white too.
Awesome. So this is the stout, right?
So you're into the big beers now.
Okay.
So these are the beers that were for my wife and I's wedding. That's the CSP, the Mocha Stout. That's my wife's beer. So we use decaf coffee from the coffee store in Saranac Lake, and it's an imperial, so it's bigger. This is very fresh. So the coffee and chocolate notes are much stronger. In about a month, they dissipate just a little bit. But this was kegged yesterday.
Love that nose. Awesome. Toast.
Yeah.
So for those who are asking why you're not drinking, you have to leave right after. So that's,
I'm still at work. If this was a 5 p.m. interview, I'd be going with you, but I got a long day ahead of me.
Well, you also close at 9 p.m. So
yes.
Oh wow. Yeah, chocolate and coffee. All dancing on my palate.
So you guys will get the inside story on names there. So this is the furthest it's ever been broadcast, because I only tell normal customers.
That's awesome.
Like regulars.
Love it.
The CSP, like the CBS, the KBS, like, but it's my wife's beer, so it stands for Captain Sassy Pants.
Okay. Love it. That's hilarious. I mean, mentioning names earlier, it's like, personally, if I were to start a brewery, I'd be like owner/project manager, because, speaking with other people in the beer industry who don't brew, they're like, science is hard. I'm like, yes, I agree. Science is hard. I know I would just butcher whatever beers I make, where it's like, okay, I know so many people in the brewing industry now. Maybe I could speak to other brewers and be like, do you know somebody coming out of brewing school who could come and work for me, and I can make them a partner in the future and stuff like that. And I'll do everything else. He just needs to make the beer, or he or she. Because breweries are trying to be inclusive as they can for everybody, credence, color, and whatever you do in your life. Just be happy and drink good beverages.
That's what it's about. So no one normally walks in here with an angry. They might come in angry, but they never leave angry. You know what I'm saying? It's a community. If you're going to start a brewery, though, make sure you've got at least 3 full-time positions packed into it. You need someone doing the brewery, someone doing the business, and somebody doing everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I like to ask, so I come from out of town now. You already mentioned Ausable and Racket. But other friends in the area, even restaurants who have your beer, like friends in the area to try after they've come here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I live in Saranac Lake, and it's 10 minutes down that way. It's technically this county and then still in Saint Armand, this town, this hamlet.
Yeah.
But I going to Saranac Lake, there's some great restaurants. I mean, if you want something on the higher end, go to Fiddlehead. He's just does amazing work. And believe it or not, there's some more breweries popping up that I'm trying to send people to. So Bitters and Bones is a bar that's been around for a long time in Saranac Lake, but they put a 5-barrel in recently, and they had 2 beers out before, but now they're getting up to 3, 4. And I would just put that shot in the arm for another brewery trying to put something together out here. They were delayed with a whole bunch of things, but they're up and running.
Yeah.
So I'm pointing people towards the new guys. Other breweries wise, Placid has some good breweries. The guy who owns Big Slide in the pub, he's big in the Brewers Association.
Yeah, we're in talks to interview them. So.
Yeah. So getting over to Placid, there's several other options. I'm still talking about breweries, I guess.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well, no. But anybody you love to give a shout out to that, if somebody like myself who's new to this area, I've never been in this part of New York State.
Yeah.
I've never been to a lot of parts of New York State because New York is a pretty big state when you think about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, no. So I mean, across the street's for lease, but who knows? Maybe in the future there'll be like an awesome corner store there or something who has your beer. So
yeah, well, if you drive a little bit further down, the Norman's General Store is an iconic building, but I think it's gonna be a little while before it's fixed up. But it's real small around here, and so any restaurant that's run by somebody local or a local farm, we have a farmers co-op that's associated with the business because we try and help promote some of their products like we do at the farmers market.
Yeah.
So go and buy from any of those farms you can. There's people that do mushrooms, there's people that do veggies, there's people that do pork, there's everything, and you just know it's going to come from this hyper local area. And that's what I focus on, is actually buying directly from producers.
Yeah.
And for up here, it's you're making beer, or you're making the farm product, or you're working in the kitchen, and as direct to the source as you can possibly get is the best way to go.
That's what we always say. Last week's interview before you, it was a place that they're literally like ski area of all the Montrealers just drive an hour and they ski up there. Yeah. And there's a new brewery called Adirondack, and he's like, I produce everything local, and I legitimately had one of the best burgers I've ever tasted. And he's like, no, this is 100% local. We make our own bread. We do this, we do that. And it's like, yes, my palate is exactly like what my brain thinks is, yes, this is 100% local. I'm not buying frozen burgers from my local grocery store. I'm getting like freshly, for those who still eat meat, I'm getting freshly done brisket burger with freshly pig for bacon and fresh mushrooms from it. I'm like, yes, this is what everybody needs to do now. And I don't know why it's taken us as a society this long to understand that you should be supporting a local business no matter what.
It does cost more. I mean, when you're supporting me in a tap room, it does cost more because we're small, but making that mental shift of what is the value of your product, not just in quality, but in community and an ethos, you know. And if you're willing to put that extra 20% down for hyper local, but you're making a vote with your dollar every time. Exactly. And when things like pandemics happen, only thing available is local sometimes, right? So we need them around more than just as an economy, you know.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's kind of our ethos, is support local. So, all right, what's this last beer I'm doing here?
So that's the honey double IPA. I wanted to make sure you had a beer that really emphasized honey because the bragget's not out yet. And the last two, like I said, are the wedding beers, so it's a fun story. But this is just, I keep the IBUs intentionally low because I want some of that honey sweetness. Most of it does come from malt, but we do put a good amount of honey in. So low IBUs, it's like a dangerous 9% though. No.
Yeah, it's a good thing we have post-production after this because I will not be driving right away. So awesome. A toast.
Yeah.
That's 9%?
That's 9%.
You lie to me.
No, take another sip and you'll start to get a little bit of the heat will show up after about 2 to 3 sips.
Wow.
But it's a deceptive 9. There's a reason I charge that much for a 10-ounce pour is because it just goes down too smooth. And I'd have people come in and they would pound a pint of it and not know what they were doing.
Yeah, this could be dangerous. That happened to me early pandemic. I bought a bunch of local double. I'm like, oh, double IPA is cool, and they were like super hoppy and juicy and stuff. And I'm pounding them, and I'm like, oh, these are 8% beers. So what's next as a brand for Hex and Hops?
Well, I definitely want to explore the meads further. I'm dabbling around with becoming more of a winemaker and using sulfites or something to create some semi-sweet stuff. But as a brewer, my heart just doesn't want to do it. And it's also kind of illegal for a brewer to use sulfites. Yeah. But I do want to expand the mead lines into meads can be anything. Yeah. Spiced, fruit, dry. I make a huge one in the winter that's like 18% and I hide it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to come back during the winter and be like, hey, Ethan, let's...
yeah, we did. A little taste of that. Yeah. It's like the Viking drink, right?
Yeah.
I want to definitely expand the mead lines. And like I said, move into some other markets nearby that are very close to us. We got a lot of really positive feedback in the Potsdam area. And like I said, working with In-Law up there. Yep. And then, just making people more aware of the product that's out there right now. We started doing the cans about a year ago. And then this local area, they're pretty much everywhere. Every gas station, grocery store, all the way up to Champlain, and letting people know which products are coming out. These are the staples in front of us. I've also got the Mocha Stout coming out seasonally, so that'll be ready in the next run. Our Pale Ale is normally out there, but everyone's out of it right now because summer's here and we just can't make enough. Yeah. And then just, if you want to follow us on any of the social medias, that's the best part to find out, what band is playing tonight, what beer's coming out, what are the exclusives you can only get here in the tap room, what's available up at, and which stores have it now kind of thing. Yeah. My goals now are really to kind of dial in the production facility. It's only 10 minutes down the road. Everything's still made, Saranac Lake, Bloomingdale. But dial that place in and kind of increase awareness of the cans that are out there.
Fantastic. I can never thank you enough for hosting us today, for speaking about your brewery and your passion about beer and the Bloomingdale area and stuff. I've got no other questions. Yeah. Like I said, thank you very much once again. Let people know where they can find you physically and online.
Oh yeah. No, and it's been a blast. Yeah, you're really easy to work with. You never know when someone new comes in the door, right? Yeah. Our website and our social media are the best place. So hexandhop.com to find about locations, what the food menu is right now. Social media is definitely the best place to find out about beer releases, what's new, what's coming on. And then stores, in the 3 local counties, everything from Maplefield gas stations to the small independent places, love to plug, like Lake City Beverage in Plattsburgh, but you can also get it at Price Chopper and Hannaford's, the Market 32 up there in Plattsburgh.
Are you guys at Arnold's Liquor down on near Ostable?
I don't know if we're there specifically. Okay. That would be, there's a lot of small independents in these 3 counties, and I don't know if for certain we're out there.
Yeah, because we got I got a trucker friend, and every time he goes to, because he drives down the 87 to wherever he's going, and then he's like, yeah, dude, you got to go to Arnold's Liquors. I'm like, that's great, but I'm busy visiting breweries. I can't go to a beer store. So, but yeah, you seem to be out there, and I believe Craft Beer Cabin we mentioned earlier, you guys are there too. So.
Yeah, and we do a lot of festivals in the summer. I think we've got 30 to 40 this year. Wow. So, I'm going to be up in the Potsdam area for. There's a co-op. There's a big gathering of local small businesses that are trying to get off the ground at the St. Lawrence Nursery up there. So we're going to be there for there. The Festival of Colors in Wilmington. We like to travel around too. To a lot of little local fairs and stuff like that. It's like right where we're going to be. So look for us to be in some of those locations as well.
Love it.
Yeah.
I look forward to the future here. We'll have to come back sometime and just sit down and have a beer. Or I saw your giant patio outside with the fireplace. So. Yep. You seem to thankfully be open all year round too. So maybe if I don't ski, but maybe if I come up for whatever other winter reason, as a Canadian, I should ski though. Yeah. Nonetheless, thank you once again very much, and hopefully we could just sit down and enjoy a beer one day.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. As for us, allbeerinside.com is the website. At allbeerinside on all social media, and as I say at the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.